All right, today we are jumping into a book that has totally changed the way millions of people think about money. Rich Dad, Poor Dad. We're going to break down the massive mindset shift that's at the very core of this book, and we'll do it by walking through Robert Kiyosaki's own stories. So let's get right into it.
So the book kicks things off with this huge question, one that I'm sure we've all asked ourselves at some point. I mean, we're all taught the same thing, right? Study hard, get good grades, and a safe, secure job will be waiting for you. But what Kiyosaki argues is that the world has changed so much that advice isn't just old. It might actually be dangerous.
And that really leads us to the first big idea here. The financial playbook that our parents and grandparents used, it just doesn't work anymore. That whole idea of working for one company your entire life and retiring with a nice pension, yeah, that's pretty much a thing of the past.
This is the classic advice from the poor dad in the story. Now, this was a brilliant, highly educated guy who, even with a great salary, was always struggling with money. And the book's point is that this advice basically trains you to be a great employee, not a rich person. In today's world, with companies constantly changing, relying on that safe, secure job has ironically become one of the riskiest things you can do.
Okay, so the whole book is really built around this amazing story. When Robert Kiyosaki was a kid, he had two dads. There was his actual father, who he calls Poor Dad, and then there was his best friend's dad, his rich dad. And these two guys had completely, and I mean completely, opposite ideas about money. This forced young Robert to really stop, think, and choose which path he was going to follow.
I mean, just look at this. It's night and day. Poor Dad always said things like, the love of money is the root of all evil. He saw it as something negative. But Rich Dad, he flipped that completely on its head. He'd say the lack of money is the root of all evil. He saw financial struggle as the real problem that caused greed and fear.
And this difference went way deeper than just quotes. It was about their whole way of thinking. Poor Dad's go-to phrase was, "I can't afford it," which, when you think about it, is just a full stop. It ends all thinking. Rich Dad, on the other hand, banned those words. He made his kids ask, "How can I afford it?" That little switch turns a dead end into a puzzle that your brain has to solve.
And their career advice was just as different. Poor Dad's advice was, study hard so you can find a good company to work for. It was all about being a good employee. But Rich Dad's advice, study hard so you can find a good company to buy. You see the difference? It's about being an owner, not an employee. It's the difference between climbing the corporate ladder and owning the ladder itself.
Then there's the whole idea of risk. Poor Dad's philosophy was simple. Play it safe, don't take risks. Security was everything. Rich Dad saw it totally differently. For him, the goal wasn't to avoid risk. That's impossible. The goal was to learn to manage risk. He knew that financial intelligence is what gives you the power to handle uncertainty and turn it into an opportunity.
So what happens when you followed Poor Dad's safe advice your whole life? Well, Rich Dad had this incredible metaphor for it. He called it a trap that keeps millions of smart, hardworking people financially stuck forever. He called it the rat race.
And you probably know exactly what this feels like. It's that endless hamster wheel. You work hard to earn money. But the more you earn, the more you spend. Maybe you get a bigger house, a fancier car, and suddenly you're working even harder just to pay for all your stuff. But you're not actually getting any wealthier. You're just running faster. And this is what that cycle looks like. Step 1, you work for money. Step 2, that money immediately flies out of your bank account to pay for taxes, your mortgage, car payments, you name it. Step 3, you run out of money. And step 4, that fear and stress makes you go back to work even harder just so you can repeat the whole cycle all over again. It's exhausting. So if that's the trap, how in the world do you escape? Well, that brings us to the very first and probably the most important lesson that Rich Dad ever taught, and it came from Robert's first job, working for Rich Dad for almost no pay. Now, Rich Dad didn't just sit him down for a lecture. No, he was way smarter than that. He set up a real-world situation designed to teach Robert a lesson through pure experience. It was a lesson designed to feel unfair, to feel frustrating, and ultimately, to open his eyes.
And there it is. This is the single biggest idea in the entire book. See, Poor Dad's entire life was about working for a paycheck. But Rich Dad's whole strategy was about building or buying assets, things that put money into your pocket 24/7, whether you're working or not. This is the gigantic leap from the employee mindset to the investor mindset.
So the story is pretty great. Rich Dad paid Robert a tiny 10 cents an hour. 10 cents! After a few weeks, Robert was furious and wanted to quit. And that's exactly what Rich Dad was waiting for. He explained that most people get trapped right there. They get mad about their low pay, so they blame their boss and ask for a raise. They stay in the system. The real lesson was to stop obsessing over the paycheck and start looking for opportunities to create money that had nothing to do with trading his time.
And all of this leads to the final and maybe the most powerful idea in the whole book. Rich Dad says that life is constantly pushing us around, especially with money. You know, a surprise car repair, an unexpected bill. He says that in those moments, we all have a choice to make.
Path 1 is what most people do. They just take it. They let life push them around, and they blame everyone else. Their boss, their job, the economy. They play it safe and just hope things get better. But then there's Path 2. That's the Rich Dad path. Instead of getting pushed over, you see the push as a signal, as a lesson, and you ask yourself, okay, what's the opportunity here? What can I learn from this so I'm stronger next time?
So really, that's the question the book leaves you with. It argues that your financial problems aren't really about a lack of money, they're about a lack of financial education. Life is going to push all of us, that's a guarantee. The difference between being stuck in the rat race forever and finding real freedom all comes down to which path you choose when that push comes.